Okay, let's talk about incontinence first. Incontinence, which is stress incontinence, is when you leak a little bit of pee or a lot of pee when you have a stress that goes through your body. So things like jumping, running, coughing, sneezing, things like that. That's called stress incontinence. Or this can be related to gas as well, or even your bowels. Urge incontinence is when you feel like you can't hold it. You either have to go to the bathroom very often and you're getting a really strong urge to go to the bathroom, and once you have to go, you cannot hold it. You need to find a bathroom right away. That is also a form of incontinence. Or even if you feel like you have to limit your water intake. So sometimes women will go to the bathroom right before a workout, right? And they think, okay, I'm not gonna drink water before my run, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And they either leak or they don't leak, but even if they don't leak, that's still a sign that something's off. So kind of look out for that in your own body, because ladies, you should not be leaking pee when you work out. It's very common, but it is a sign of dysfunction. And I can't tell you how many times I hear it, even in my own friends. We laugh about once you have a baby, you have to cross your legs when you sneeze, or once you have a baby, you can't jump on a trampoline. And we think that that's just a result of giving birth, however it happens, vaginal birth, C-section birth, but it is not normal. That's what I want to say. And sometimes people think, oh, well, I had a C-section, so what's wrong with me? Why am I having incontinence? But it's because it's not all about the pelvic floor. If you watch the previous video, it's about how that whole inner core is controlling pressure. So some quick tips, because a lot of times incontinence, when I evaluate someone, we find that their movement patterns, so the way that their body is either initiating movement or stabilizing for their workouts, it's pushing downward. So the pressure is kind of coming downward, and over time, that will either show that there's a weakness in the pelvic floor and it can't hold on, or it could be just an endurance issue. You can have a super strong and effective functional pelvic floor, but if there's always downward pressure on it, it's going to eventually give a little bit and cause some problems. So a couple tips, right? One is use your breath. So you'll hear the cues, and you'll probably notice them more now that I am saying it, but as you are doing all the workouts, make sure you are breathing. It's very common to hold breath. A lot of times we don't even know we're doing it. It's a compensation pattern. So if the body, remember that inner core's job is to stabilize the spine. So if the spine senses like, ooh, there's some weakness here, we're not really all online doing our job, automatically the brain, almost always the second stabilizer is to hold breath. So we kind of puff with air and hold, right? So you might not even notice. So just make sure you're moving breath, move that pressure up and down through your body as you're working out. I like to say exhale with exertion. So even a bicep curl, right? But as long as you're breathing, I don't really care how you breathe, as long as you're breathing. But if you want to get into it and you want to see how it feels in your body, try exhaling with the exertion or out of a squat. So as you come up and out, right? And be very deliberate about it in the beginning so your body gets back in the habit of using breath versus holding breath. So start to notice that. Another thing that I see all the time, and it's like an easy little thing to work on, is where your pelvis is positioned when you do exercise. So if you watch me from the side, sometimes postpartum, we get into the habit of shifting our pelvis forward, right? And kind of tucking our tailbone under. And we wind up in this sort of position. It's kind of that flat butt. Like if you can see an underwear line or like a glute line, that means your pelvis is tucked. It's a pretty clear cue there. So that puts our pelvic floor in a different position. So it almost can't even work as well. It's not really like on to do its job, right? So when you are doing exercises, if you just think of restacking your pelvis over your ankles, you're already gonna be activating better. And then if you are doing squats and you remember, I don't want to tuck my tailbone under, right? I don't want to squat like this. I want to sit my hips back, settle in there, that hip hinge, and come up through the hips, right? That works that pelvic floor, or it sets it up to stabilize against the pressure of your movement. And actually, I want to show you something real quick. So the reason why, and sometimes when you see this, it makes more sense, but this is your pelvis, right? Sits in you like this. Your pelvic floor, there's a big open hole down here, birth canal, but your pelvic floor is the stability for that, right? So it goes here to here, here to here. It's like a diamond shape. And it helps to literally support your organs, support your bladder, support your urethra. It has lots of things. It's integrated into your hips and your posture. We're not going to get into all the details of pelvic floor now, but you can go on my website. A lot of them are on there. But anyway, so pelvic floor is here. So when your pelvis is tucked, gravity, I don't know if you can kind of see that on video, but when your pelvis is tucked, so tailbone under, that hole is facing the ground. So gravity, there's more pressure going straight down through your pelvic floor. When you are elongated, and I don't want you to be like really arched in your back, I'm just saying not tucked, okay? So when you are in this neutral spine, long spine, then your body, you actually have some bony blocking for your bladder. Your bladder sits here. So actually our pelvis is really set up for function and to hold all of our organs up and support it. And we just do a little bit of a disservice when we stand in that tucked pelvis, because now it just can't do its job quite as well. So that's an easy thing to look for. And the last thing really quickly I want to show you is we're going to talk about Kegels for a minute. And I would actually like you to lay down on the floor if you can. I'll stay standing just so I can still talk to you very easily. But in my next video, I'm gonna lie down. But so lay down on the floor. It's the easiest place to feel your pelvic floor. Make sure your pelvis is nice and relaxed. You're not tucked a lot, right? So just let everything relax. All I want you to feel for, real quick, everybody knows or has heard probably Kegels stop the flow of urine. Like, so try to stop the flow of urine. If you can, okay, you're good. But actually, that's not the full function of a Kegel. Or I like to say pelvic floor contraction and relaxation. So when it's at its full function, your pelvic floor, it doesn't just squeeze, okay? It closes, imagine a marble in your vaginal canal, close around that marble, right? So that's the squeeze, but then lift that marble up inside your body, kind of behind your belly button. So think, okay, I'm scooping that marble up and in behind my belly button. Pause at the top and appreciate it, feel it, and then release with control and totally relax. So pelvic floor is at its best function when it can not only do that whole action and not just the squeezies, but go through a full range of motion. Because actually, one of the problems is we do Kegels and we get so tight. And a tight pelvic floor, just like your bicep, if it was always going here to here to here, right? It's not very functional. It has to be able to open all the way and release all the way, lengthen all the way, and then contract all the way. That is a very strong and functional muscle. So that's just a quick little tip, because a lot of times women call me and they say, I was told to do Kegels and I'm doing Kegels all the time, but I'm still leaking. So what is going on? So the first thing is to try to connect a little more deeply with that whole pelvic floor, and also so the squeeze and close, right? Wrap around that marble and then lift it up into your body, kind of behind your belly button. That action, that puts it in with your whole inner core, right? Remember we talked about how it's actually a part of your core? That will get your abdominal wall involved, right? So they're partners. They have to be able to work together to be functional and to support your organs and support your bladder. And then remembering that the release and the lengthening is really important as well, because you can leak with a strong and tight pelvic floor, just like you can leak with a very unconnected, kind of lengthened, weak pelvic floor. So it doesn't mean you're weak. It's just about finding that coordination, that control, and that awareness. And then from there, if those things don't help, there's a lot of other things to look at, the styles of movement and contraction, where your hips are, where your sacrum and your pelvis is, because sometimes after birth, things are a little shifted, and that can change your pelvic floor function. So there's a lot of things to look at, but just kind of start reconnecting with yourself with intention. And so something like, oh, I can jump up and down, but I can't do jumping jacks, right? Because that separates my legs and I'm more vulnerable. That's a sign that your body is using other muscles to kind of hang on real tight, and it's not quite so connected with pelvic floor. And then when your legs come out and things have to be connected on that center line, they're not sure what to do. So try it out, see what you think. Call me if you have any questions. I love talking about this stuff. I'm always open to talking. So definitely reach out to me, or any of the trainers, because they know their stuff and they know their modifications. But there is help out there. Don't just settle for it, and don't just stay silent. Definitely talk about it, figure it out in your body.